Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Ectohead channel. Behind me you'll see the Artemis launch that was being recorded by NASA on quite a plethora of different cameras. In fact, there are some stunning views here, so as we talk I do hope you'll enjoy them. But the reason it's being played is because it strikes me that as we're trying to get out there appears to be trying to get to us. I'm talking about Chris Bedsoe. And for those of you who don't know, Chris Bedsoe is a man whom, quite a few years ago now, found himself at a time in his life where he was at his wit's end. He was physically ill, quite badly so in fact. He was financially going under. And on a hunting trip to unwind with a few friends, he went off for a walk on his own. And in his despair, looked up to the heavens and literally cried out to God for help. What followed was interesting to say the least. He encounters two what can only be described as alien or angelic beings. His life from that point on changes dramatically, and he has had since an ongoing relationship with lights in the sky and orbs, and has communicated with entities, one in particular called the Lady. Now, Chris Bedsoe's story is very interesting and it has many facets attached to it. But what we're currently interested in today is the message that this entity that he's been in contact with, called the Lady, had to give him. The shorthand of which is, when humanity's suffering becomes too much to bear, then there will be help. And that help will come in the form of some interaction. The upshot of it all is this. This Easter, this coming Easter 2026, literally a day or so away, if what Chris Bedsoe says is true, orbs will emerge from the sea and they will herald the beginning of a change for mankind. The message of help that the Lady gave Chris Bedsoe will come to fruition. A new dawning, a new age will occur, and mankind will be availed of a new type of knowledge which will see him expand spiritually and into the universe, one can only imagine, and hope, in fact. But what form will the help the Lady says she will give take? What if helping humanity means wiping 50% of humanity out in order to allow the rest to somehow reset? Well, that's great for everyone who remains alive, but what about everyone who gets wiped out? What if they only wipe out the evil people? Well, what constitutes evil? Stealing something when you're a kid? Murder? I can tell you from my own personal experience that I've tried to lead a good and honest life, but on many, many occasions I've fallen short. But as the Bible says, we're all fallible in our humanity. We're like babies. We can't be blamed for our actions. But frankly, I don't think that's true. I'm happy to take what's coming to me when I stand at the pearly gates, assuming I get that far, and take whatever it is that I have to take to atone for whatever sins I've committed. But if I'm to be wiped out to leave only the truly pure at heart alive on the planet, then, yeah, you'll forgive me if I'm not entirely on board with that. This is all speculation, of course, and this is what we do on this channel. What else can we do with the subject of UFOs and UAPs and the entities that come along with them other than speculate? Oh, look at this shot. Look at that shot. Incredible. But what isn't in the realms of speculation is Dr. Tim Taylor, a NASA specialist, who is a very interesting man in his own right. Not only is he a nuts and bolts scientist, I believe a pilot, amongst other things, but it appears he studiously follows daily ritual and has benefited from these rituals. Dr. Tim Taylor is plugged into everyone and everything that is of importance in the modern day world. He is very highly connected and very well thought of. And he is the kind of individual who, when going in and out of airports, doesn't need to show his passport. He's cleared. So much so, in fact, that when Dr. Diana Pasulka organised a trip to the Vatican archives for herself and Dr. Tim Taylor, there was a discussion on whether or not he would be able to get in without her credentials. He arrived there much sooner than she did and decided that he would give it a shot. And sure enough, he was cleared. A man with such high clearances can only be of interest to the highest members of society. who share the highest clearances. And I do wonder if indeed he was read into the secret space program, or at least the alleged secret space program, made famous by the hacker Gary McKinnon, who 20 years ago went fishing on what was then a very new internet. He fished across the planet using dial-up network. For those of you who can remember dial-up internet, it really was a chore. And so Gary McKinnon went looking for various computer terminals in various secret facilities across the US. In many cases, the passwords hadn't even been changed, so they were all set at default. And during months and possibly even years of searching, he finally hits the jackpot. And on this dial-up internet, a picture starts to reveal itself, and he can see the curvature of the Earth. And as the picture reveals itself segment by segment by segment, because dial-up was really slow and cumbersome, a tic-tac is suspended in orbit around the planet. And he says that even though the picture was very low resolution, you could definitely tell what it was. For this, he went through a lengthy court case, was threatened with extradition, and was going to be locked up for 75 years, I believe. He didn't do any damage, although he said he did damage. And he didn't even break in. The passwords were just default passwords. But the Pentagon will have their pound of flesh. And if it wasn't for Theresa May, the Conservative Prime Minister at the time, he would probably be languishing in some US hellhole. And so what is Dr. Tim Taylor's involvement in the secret space program? What is NASA's involvement in the secret space program? Gary McKinnon saw a document on another one of his fishing expeditions that related to off-world officers, within which there was a manifest that gave names, and ship names also. Unfortunately, he can't remember any of the names of the officers involved or the ships involved, but he doesn't remember ever seeing anything of them being mentioned as Navy craft that we would have on the waters of the ocean today. The assumption by extension must mean that we had spaceships, fully functional, star-traveling spaceships. And if we do have those spaceships, where are they now? And what are they doing? And why don't we know about those as well? Consider a moment how many planets have been visited by this space fleet. How many discoveries have been made, and what has happened to those discoveries? What warehouses have they been boxed up and hidden in? What technologies they brought back, what benefits they had, and all because a few individuals in the know said, no, let's not let anybody see that. And it just got locked up. I don't think personally anyone should have that amount of power. And let's not forget Oumuamua, a visitor to this solar system, who then a few years later was followed by 3I Atlas, which was promptly classified. Yep, you heard it correctly. The CIA classified a celestial object. Weeks later, pictures were revealed of the classified stellar object, and it was just a rock. And we're really supposed to believe that. 3I Atlas now seems to have vanished. It's no longer in the coordinates NASA says it should be in. Or at least, if I understood it correctly, that's what I think. And we've had an increase in filmed fireballs entering various skies across the planet. And let's not even talk about red Australia. We've most of us experienced orange atmospheres when we have dust that's been blown in to Europe from the Africas. But what we saw in Australia recently was quite a few steps above and beyond that. The environment was Martian red and was frankly quite spooky and foreboding. And let's not forget Dr. Felipe Biondi, who, with his technology, looked deep into the earth under the Great Pyramid and found something frankly incredible. Large pillars stretching deep underground, the width of the footprint of the Great Pyramid, and we don't know what they're for. Soon, all will become apparent. I can't wait. In closing, it really does feel as though things are coming to a head. The hour of Chris Bedsoe's prophecy is nearly upon us, and soon we will know whether or not orbs will emerge from the oceans and help us out. At which point, we will be left with either the unmistakable knowledge that Chris Bedsoe was the prophet of our era, or some kind of celestial patsy. and we can put his name alongside all the other prophets whose hour has come and gone without so much as a squeak. When it comes to these kind of prophecies, I prefer to keep my powder dry. I always skirt around the edges, preferring to give myself room, a margin for error. Because if he's wrong and nothing happens, then my disappointment will be mild. If Chris Bedsoe, the most ordinary looking of ordinary men, is right, then the world will never be the same. Do let me know what you think in the comments below. Do like, subscribe and share. It really would help the channel. And until next time, best of luck.